240 pounds of vegetables came out of my backyard last summer. The same beds in the same Midwest backyard gave me about 90 pounds a few years before that. Karen wrote both numbers in the harvest log, so I cannot round them up, even when I want to. Same square footage, same soil, same climate, and the same hours from me. I did not add a bed. I did not buy one of those bottles you mix into a watering can, and I did not have a truckload of compost dumped in the driveway every April. What changed is that I quit feeding my garden on my schedule and started building beds that feed the plants on theirs. 10 different ways to do it, all of them cheap, and most of them running on material you are setting out at the curb in a bag right now. I am going to walk you through all 10 the way I set them up in my own raised beds and rows. But stay with me all the way to the end, because every single one of these 10 can backfire and starve the plant you are trying to feed. It comes down to one thing that happens in that soil in the first 3 weeks, and it is the reason one gardener swears by buried kitchen scraps and the fellow next door swears they turned his tomatoes yellow. I am Steve Calloway. I have been growing food in this same backyard for more than 20 years, raised beds along the fence and in ground rows out in the open. For most of those years, I have run side-by-side test beds and written down what actually happened, because my first garden was a jungle of green that gave me about a dozen sad tomatoes by September. Karen keeps the harvest log with me these days, and our problem now is giving the food away fast enough. A lot of backyard gardens follow the same pattern every year. June is beautiful. The plants shoot up, the vines take off, the first tomatoes set. Then around the middle of July, everything just parks. New growth goes pale, blossoms drop instead of setting, and the fruit that comes in is the size of a golf ball. Now here is where a lot of folks go wrong. They reach for the bottle in the shed and mix up another round of liquid feed. I did that for years. The trouble with the bottle is that it lands in the top 2 inches of soil, and by midsummer your plant is not eating up there anymore. Its working roots are 8, 10, 12 inches down and out to the sides, hunting. Whatever you pour on top is gone in about 10 days, which is why the bottle turns into a chore you repeat every other weekend all summer. A self-feeding bed works the other way around. You put slow food down where the roots are heading before they get there, and the worms and the soil hand it over on the plant's schedule instead of yours. And I will come back to that 3-week window I mentioned, because it decides whether these 10 methods feed your plant or starve it. Now, everything I'm showing you today is one piece of a bigger system, and I wrote the whole thing down day by day in a book called Steve's 30-Day Maximum Yield Protocol. It is 115 pages that take you from soil preparation through harvest, one day at a time, in the order I do it in my own beds. Inside it, you get the big 7 yield killers, which is how you find the one thing holding your garden back instead of guessing, feeding for fruit instead of foliage, the pruning that feels wrong while you are doing it and puts more food on the plant anyway, and the companion and succession planting systems I run every year. $17 marked down from $47, and one good tomato plant pays for it. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you're watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, let us get our hands in the dirt, because number 1 happens in the 2 minutes before a plant ever goes in the ground. Number 1, the loaded planting hole. I dig the hole about twice as deep as the pot needs. For a tomato, that means 14 inches down, not the 6 inches the root ball actually takes. 14 inches, and it is worth measuring the first few times. In the bottom 4 inches, I put 2 big handfuls of finished compost. On top of that goes 1 handful of alfalfa meal, which is ground up hay from the feed store, about $20 a bag. Then, and this part matters, I put 2 inches of plain soil back over that layer. Only then does the root ball go in. That 2-inch buffer is there because young roots should never sit directly in raw material. They grow down and find it in about 6 weeks, right when the plant switches from making leaves to setting fruit. In my test rows, the loaded holes kept putting on new tomatoes about 3 weeks longer into the fall than the plain holes beside them. That one feeds from below, this next one feeds from the top down, and it is the easiest thing on the whole list. Number 2, the deep mulch blanket. Every square inch of bare soil in my beds is under 4 inches of straw or shredded leaves by the middle of June. 4 inches, and pull it back about 2 inches from each stem so the stem stays dry. Water the soil first, then lay the mulch, because dry straw over dry ground just sheds the next rain. Mulch gets talked about as weed control and moisture, and it is both. It is also slow feeding. The bottom half inch of that straw sits against damp soil and soil life, and it turns into dark, crumbly food all season. The feeder roots of most vegetables live in the top few inches, which is exactly where that food shows up. In August, my mulched beds run 10 to 15 degrees cooler up top than the bare test bed I keep for comparison. And cool roots keep eating when hot roots quit. Shredded leaves from last fall are free. So that is a whole feeding program for the price of running the mower. But the roots that carry a plant through August run further out than that. Number 3, the compost trench between the rows. Old-timers dug these for their pea and bean rows long before I tried it, and it held up in my beds. You dig a trench 1 foot deep and 1 shovel wide right down the open ground between 2 rows, or right where next year's row is going to go. Then all summer, your kitchen scraps go into that trench instead of the compost pile. Every time you add scraps, cover them with 2 or 3 inches of the soil you dug out. That covering keeps the flies off and the smell down, and it is the difference between a compost trench and a garbage pit. By fall, the trench is a dark seam of compost, and next spring, you plant your row right on top of it. 2 rules keep this out of trouble. No meat, no dairy, no cooking oil, because those bring animals and turn sour underground. And keep it a full foot deep, or you'll be feeding raccoons. So that is the trench. Now for the one I would build first if you only did one thing off this list. Number 4, the feeder tube. Go get a 4-inch white PVC pipe, 10 feet long, and cut it into pieces 2 feet tall. One pipe gives you 5 feeder tubes for around $20. Drill 1/4-inch holes all over the bottom 18 inches of each piece and leave the top 6 inches solid. Now sink that tube 18 inches down into the bed, so about 6 inches of white pipe stands above the soil. Set it in the middle of 4 plants, each about a foot from the pipe. From that day on, your kitchen scraps go down the tube. Coffee grounds, banana peels, lettuce ends, and a scoop of old compost now and then. Wet it whenever you water the bed. Worms move up into that tube because it is dark and damp and full of food, and they carry the finished castings back out through those holes into the root zone. The roots find the holes within a few weeks and wrap right around the pipe. 1 tube feeds 4 plants all season, with no other feeding at all. I run 5 of them across 3 raised beds, and the peppers and squash around those tubes outproduce the same varieties at the far end of the bed. If drilling a pipe is not your idea of a Saturday, a 5-gallon bucket with holes in the sides, sunk to the rim, does the same job for 1 big plant. That turns a bed into a feeding station. This next one skips the bed altogether. Number 5, planting straight into a straw bale. A bale of wheat straw runs about $8 at the feed store. Set it on the ground with the cut ends facing up and the strings running around the sides. Never cut those strings. Then you condition it, which takes about 2 weeks and is the step people skip. For the first 10 days, sprinkle a cup of blood meal or a lawn fertilizer with no weed killer in it over the top and water it in every day for 10 days. The bale will heat up in the middle and then it will cool back down. Once it is cool and dark inside, dig little pockets in the top, fill each one with 2 handfuls of compost and plant into that. From there, the bale feeds the plant as it rots underneath. I get 2 zucchini plants per bale and about 60 pounds of squash out of 3 bales on a gravel side yard where nothing else grows. 2 cautions: straw, not hay. Because hay carries seed and you will be pulling grass all summer, and ask the seller whether the field was sprayed, because some pasture herbicides survive in straw and stunt tomatoes. Now, if you're wondering why a bale of straw needs 10 days of nitrogen before it can feed anything, hold that thought. That is the mechanism I promised you, and it is coming. Number 6, the lasagna bed. This is how I build every new bed now, and I do it in October, so it is ready in May. Lay plain cardboard right down on the grass with the tape and labels pulled off, wet it down. Then you go in layers, 4 inches of brown material, which means shredded leaves, straw, or shredded paper, then 2 inches of green material, which means grass clippings, kitchen scraps, or aged manure, then brown again, then green again, until the pile stands about 18 inches tall. Finish with 2 inches of compost on top, and that is the layer you plant into spring. 2 parts brown to 1 part green by volume. Write that ratio down because it comes back at the end of this video. Over the winter, it sinks by about a third and turns into the best soil on my property, and it never needs turning. My first lasagna bed fed itself for 3 full seasons before I added anything. The next one costs $2 and grows right in with your vegetables. Number 7, living mulch, which is a cover crop growing in with your food. Once the tomatoes or the corn are established, I sow bush beans or crimson clover in the open ground between them. A $2 packet covers a bed. Those beans stay low, they shade the soil, and their roots are doing something you cannot see. Little nodules along those roots hold nitrogen the plant pulled right out of the air. Now here is the part that decides whether this works. While that bean plant is alive and growing, it keeps most of that nitrogen for itself. You get it when the plant dies. So at flowering, cut the beans off at the soil line with a knife. Leave the roots in the ground and lay the tops on the soil as mulch. Do not pull them up. Pulling takes the nodules out with the plant, and leaving them behind was the whole point. I will be straight with you. This one will not replace a compost pile. In my beds, it is worth about 1 extra feeding a season for $2 in 10 minutes with a knife. But there is one plant that does this job better than any bean. Number 8, the comfrey ring. Comfrey is a big-leafed perennial with a taproot that runs 2 or 3 feet straight down, well below where your vegetable roots are working. It pulls potassium and other minerals up from down there and stores them in those big leaves. That is a mineral pump running for free at the corner of the bed. I have 4 comfrey crowns, 1 at each corner of my big bed, and I cut them 4 or 5 times a season. The leaves go straight down on the soil around the tomatoes and the peppers, no composting first. They rot fast, about 2 weeks in warm weather, which makes comfrey the closest thing to a quick feeding on this list. One warning, and I mean it. Comfrey is permanent. Any scrap of root left in the ground grows a new plant, so put it where you never intend to till. If you would rather not commit, the same idea works with any big-leafed weed you cut and drop. Dandelion, borage, sunflower leaves. Number 9 is the long game. Number 9, the buried wood core. When I build a tall raised bed now, I do not fill the whole thing with bagged soil. The bottom 8 to 12 inches is branches, twigs, and small logs from storm cleanup packed tight. Then, and do not skip this, a layer of grass clippings and aged manure goes over that wood before any soil touches it. Then the soil on top. That wood does 2 jobs. It holds water like a sponge, so a bed built this way rides out a dry August far better than straight soil. And it breaks down over 5 to 7 years, feeding the whole time. 2 things to avoid. No black walnut because it will stunt your tomatoes, and nothing treated or painted. And here is the honest part. If you skip that layer of clippings and manure, your first season in that bed can be a real disappointment. I tested this myself the hard way in a bed I built in a hurry, and the reason is the same reason a straw bale needs its 10 days of nitrogen. We are about 2 minutes from that now. Number 10, the buried fish pocket. This is the oldest trick on the list, the one about burying a fish under the corn. I put it in the test beds expecting a nice story and nothing more. It works. Dig a hole 18 inches deep where a tomato is going. Drop in a fish carcass or the heads and frames from a fish fry, or a couple of cups of fish meal if you would rather not handle the real thing. Cover it with at least 10 inches of soil. 10 inches, and that number is not negotiable. Then plant the tomato in the top 8 inches. A fish breaks down fast, about 6 weeks in warm soil, which lands right when the plant is setting its first heavy fruit. In my side-by-side rows, the fish plants hit heavy fruit set close to 2 weeks ahead of the others. Bury it shallow and you will feed every raccoon and cat in the neighborhood, and they will dig your plant out to get to it. 10 inches on top, minimum. Now notice something about this last one. In all my testing, the fish pocket never once turned a plant yellow. A few of the others did in my early years, and that difference is exactly what I promised you in the first minute. So let me give you the whole mechanism, because once you understand it, you will never set one of these up wrong. It is called nitrogen lockup. Every one of those brown materials, the straw, the leaves, the cardboard, the wood, is mostly carbon. The microbes in your soil are happy to eat carbon, but they cannot build their own bodies out of it. They need nitrogen for that, and there is almost none in dry brown material, so they take it out of the soil right around them. For the first 2 to 4 weeks after you bury a pile of brown material, that pocket is pulling nitrogen away from everything nearby, including your plant. That is what turns the lower leaves pale and yellow, stalls the growth, and convinces a gardener that buried scraps are nonsense. It is not a loss. It is a loan. When those microbes finish the job and die off, all of that nitrogen comes back into the soil, and it comes back with more than you put in. You just have to keep your plant out of the way while the loan gets paid. 3 rules do that. 1. Never bury brown material by itself. 2 parts brown to 1 part green by volume every single time. A bucket of fresh grass clippings, a cup of blood meal, or 2 cups of alfalfa meal for every wheelbarrow of brown material. 2 parts brown, 1 part green. 2. Keep raw material out of the root zone your plant is using right now, 6 inches below the root ball or 4 inches out to the side with plain soil in between. 6 inches minimum, and that is what the 2-inch buffer in number 1 was doing. 3. Build the pocket 2 to 4 weeks ahead of planting when you can. If you are planting the same day, the nitrogen goes in with the brown material. And that is why the fish pocket and the scrap-filled feeder tube almost never cause this. They come loaded with nitrogen already, so there is nothing to borrow. That is exactly the kind of thing the whole protocol is built on. Tested in my own beds, cheap, and written out day by day so you can just follow along. If your garden stalls out every July, Steve's 30-day maximum yield protocol gives you the order to do things in day by day, and the big 7 yield killers will show you what is holding your beds back right now. $17, marked down from $47, and 1 good harvest pays for it. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you used to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up. Give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you're watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. 10 ways to make a bed feed itself. 1 ratio that makes all 10 work, and the same space and the same effort giving a completely different result. Tell me in the comments what you are growing this year and your best harvest number so far. I read every single one. Next time I'm going to show you the cut I make on every tomato plant in the 3rd week of July. The one that looks like you're ruining a healthy plant and puts about 6 more pounds of fruit on it. Get out there and get your hands dirty, and I'll see you in the garden.